Hello, and welcome to Women in EHS series. I am your host, Brandon Barlow, and in this series, we really aim to highlight women that are just changing our industry and redefining who EHS professional really is. And I'm so excited today because I have Jennifer Collins with us today. So how you doing?
I'm doing great.
So before we kind of jump into the questions, can you give us just a little bit about your title and where you work?
Sure. I am the manager of the Pollution Prevention and Compliance Assistance section at the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. And I have been working in this role since 2016, but I have been with the agency for 21 years.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for, I guess, to really kind of get your story. 'Cause I met you a couple years ago, one of my favorite people in the industry, and I'm so glad to have met you. So how did you get into the environmental space? Was it a passion? Did you kind of fall into it? What was your path?
Sure. In the 1990s, I was graduating from high school and deciding on a career choice, and I was debating on what path to take, and I was really excited about science and math in high school, and my dad encouraged me to move into the environmental science arena in college. So I looked both at Purdue and IU, and I did choose IU. I chose IU because of the liberal arts side of that. I was really more into kind of the arts and different things as well. So I wanted to have both experiences in the science realm and the liberal arts area. So I started the SPIA program at IU, School of Public and Environmental Affairs, and graduated in 1994.
Nice. I won't hold the SPIA. It's a great program at IU. I won't hold that against you since I went to Purdue, but no,
Yeah.
that's that is fine. So along the way, did you have any mentors, any women that you looked up to as you were kind of moving through that process?
I sure did. One of the women that I really look up to, or have looked up at and continue to look at, is Janet McCabe. And Janet was a long-term IDEM staff person who was in the Office of Air Quality. After college, I took a few years to get to the state, but I started working in the Office of Air Quality. And she was in our rules area, and I was an inspector. And she worked her way up through that program and the Office of Air Quality to become their assistant commissioner. And I worked basically under her. I just, in her career, she's gone to the EPA. She served as a assistant administrator to Gina McCarthy in the Office of Air and Radiation. And I just really admire her wisdom and the ability to look at all sides and then take a path forward and just understand where people are coming from. And she's very, very, very kind and just considers all the angles. And I really appreciate that in her.
I've heard nothing but great things about her. Is she still with the agency, or she's kind of retired and done with that?
Actually, no, she has moved on. She was, so after the change in administration at the US EPA, she left there and has now, is now serving as the director over the Environmental Resilience Institute at IU Bloomington.
Oh, gotcha.
And so she is very much involved in climate change and resilience efforts today.
Nice. That she seems like somebody that'd be a good person to also kind of highlight as well. So yeah, I'll keep that in the back of our mind for a future show. But so kind of back to you. So if there's one thing, one trait that kind of helps you excel, helps you get to where you are today, what would that be?
I would say it's my creativity and problem solving, solution oriented mindset. So whenever I encounter something that seems like it's an obstacle, I try to think of different ways that we might approach the problem and really work through it. I have seen where, I'll come up with a creative idea and my challenge is, I work for the government, so it might not take fruition for a couple years, but I have, been successful in implementing a lot of projects that way of just thinking outside of the box and then putting feet to it and getting it accomplished.
I can vouch for that. So as you try to move through, sometimes, like you said, you might put out a bid for something, you might not see it happen for 5 years. So you need to figure out how you're going to make that happen in the meantime. So yeah, that is definitely a good trait to have.
Yeah.
Like anybody, I'm sure you face challenges, and what kind of, if you can highlight a challenge and how you overcame that.
Sure. Yeah. The most recent project that I worked on was a portal for our compliance and technical assistance program and a database that goes with that, basically a CRM type database to manage our contacts and manage all of the requests that we get in that program. And for those of you that don't know what that is, it's a free and confidential service to the businesses in Indiana who are looking for regulatory and compliance assistance. And it's a free service, like I said. We hold everything in confidence. And so we created this portal to have the ability to get your request in the door in an easy way online, and then for us to immediately handle that on the back end. This project had huge hurdles because I did not have any funding for it at all. And the database itself was going to be at least $150,000, and our budget really for any other projects we had basically like $3,000 in our budget.
Yep.
So I put the idea out there to our chief technology officer, and that was in 2016, 2017, of a CRM like database. It stalled out for a little while. But what happened was he had it in the back of his mind as new technology was coming up and coming in front of him. He was able to think, oh, wait, Jennifer wants that CRM for CTAP. And he basically came to me and said, we need a project to do for implementation of Microsoft Dynamics for IoT. IoT wanted a group to be their guinea pig, so to speak, and for the training purposes of IDEM staff, their information services staff. And so they approached me and said, we have this opportunity to build this portal and your database, and worth $150,000, $175,000, to have this contractor work on this for you, and you won't have to pay a dime. So we did that this year during COVID. We built this database, we built this portal. It just really fell in my lap, and we had a great group of people working on it, and the obstacle of the money, bypassed that and bypassed any approvals and things that might have been a struggle before, to get things approved through our management. We bypassed all that because it was their idea.
I get a feeling your persistence paid off. Kudos to you. I'm glad you guys got that up. As soon as I got the email, I jumped right in. I'm just happy that you got that portal. Great. And it seems like you made it in the best possible way. It's free for your group. So that's the way to do it. Um, you're talking about technology, so this kind of really leads us into our
Yeah.
next question. And what do you see as the future of EHS?
So the future of EHS is definitely, to manage all of the aspects of a facility. And in my role as manager of the Compliance and Technical Assistance Program, we see a lot of businesses that are struggling. They struggle in two different areas. They struggle to develop the knowledge of all the regulatory areas that they need to comply with, and they struggle with, once they identify those areas, they struggle with meeting the compliance
Yeah.
related to those. And so technology that enables a facility to manage those various aspects of the record keeping, the reporting requirements, all of the numerous regulations that could apply to their facility, that they have a centralized way to manage that technology is invaluable to a facility. So from A to Z, they need to be tracking all of their compliance requirements, whether it's in their in their air permit or the water permit or anything like that, any of those specific requirements, as well as federal requirements or things that may not be specified within their permits in Indiana. So they need tools to manage all of that.
Yes, yes, preach. We definitely understand, and people
Mhm.
having tools and technology to assist them. And like you said, if your environmental is run by somebody who's not in the environmental space, then they may not even know what they need to report on in the first place. So I understand
Yeah.
how many calls and questions you might get about that.
Well, the problem is if you don't identify those regulatory areas on the front end and you're visited by one of the IDEM inspectors, then you may be in trouble. You may be in non-compliance and you may face penalties or enforcement action. And your company really doesn't want that to happen, because then you get tagged as a bad company or you have issues. Then if you have multiple occurrences of the same reporting violation or the same record keeping violation, those things can add up, even though they seem minor right now. Maybe you've missed a day of your visible emission notations or something like that. You want to make sure that you over time are showing that you're meeting your regulatory requirements and your permit requirements. So as a former inspector, I would look through all of those records and find where the company was missing anything. And it's just sorry, it's extremely important for a facility to manage all of those things. And without a tool to do that, it's practically impossible. And we often recommend, find a system or use a system to track your requirements, because if you don't have an internal system already, look for something that will help you manage all of your requirements, because you may have issues on the back end if you don't.
Absolutely. And, truth be told, you guys are looking for compliance and not enforcement. That is the goal really for the states.
Yes, we want compliance. And definitely in our compliance and technical assistance program, we're here to assist companies who are struggling with identifying where they need to meet the requirements. And just a plug-in for our national program, there is a national group of us, the Small Business Environmental Assistance Programs, that in every single state. So if you operate in Indiana and another state, or if you're in a different state altogether, you have one of these small business environmental assistance programs within your state. It's a requirement under the Clean Air Act. So you should check those out. Typically they're free and confidential as well. And you can definitely work with those folks in your state to get service.
Yes, I will second that. Being a former consultant, like if you don't know, use the CTAP. They're there to help you. They will answer your call and they will answer your questions. To me, you guys do, even in some states, somebody will come out there even assist you on site for free. It is a great
Yeah.
resource and tool. I can't push CTAP enough. It's a really good program.
Yeah, and we do site visits as
Yeah,
well. And during COVID, it's been a little different,
right, right.
where we do verify that there aren't cases currently happening at the facility, but we are following protocol to make sure that we ensure safety. And we will come out and look at a specific issue, or we will come out and just look generally at the facility to identify any areas where we think you need to comply with regulations.
Yeah, that's good. Good, good. Okay, so you've been, like you said, you've been with the company for 21 years. You've had a nice, long, lengthy career. So, how can
Yes.
the EHS space really improve for women? Because I'm sure you've seen it all.
Yeah, I think my career has been a little bit different because I'm in the governmental realm in the environmental field. And I did notice when I first started in the 90s that there were not very many women in this space. There were a few of us who, I think maybe two or three women who were air quality inspectors. And that definitely has changed over time. I think that more women have become involved in that. And I think there was a general um, shift in education for people who were moving into the environmental field. I think it's actually encouraged for women to be involved in science
Oh, yes.
and engineering fields now. Um, I think that one thing that women should do is really own their own skills, and maybe men as well, to identify what skills you have and then look for ways to improve your skills. So in any aspect, let's say, leadership abilities, look for ways to improve your leadership abilities. Even if you're in an EHS role, you should lead from that role. You don't need to be the senior manager of your facility to make a difference. If you lead from your position, I think that that's what I've done to advance myself to where I am, is just make yourself invaluable to the people around you by answering questions, by involving yourself in a project when it's needed.
Is that something that you think that's as we move from like further generations start coming, is that something that is kind of accepted and more free back from like kind of where you started? Was it a hurdle to kind of speak your mind, to kind of speak up, or was that something that was ingrained in you?
I think there is definitely a history of women not being encouraged to speak their mind because they are seen as um, it's a negative
Yep.
aspect for women to speak their mind. I think the one thing that changed my perspective on that was a class in a series that's called Crucial Conversations. And looking through the lens of a crucial conversation is when you speak up because there is something wrong here. There's something that if you're an EHS person and you need to speak up about some waste waste product that you're releasing to the environment, or you have an issue with something that's happening at your facility, you need to take the leadership position to say, I have an issue with this. We should not be doing this, and stand for what's right at the facility. And don't hide the way that you feel because you're scared of what others may think of you, or whether your job's on the line. I don't think you would want to continue to work for the company who's dumping, or
Right.
if they're not integritous. You need to consider that. You need to be speaking out about what is wrong.
Yeah, no, that's great advice because I feel like a lot of us got into this industry because of what you just said. We want to make sure that our companies and people are actually doing the right thing, thinking about the environment, no matter,
Yes,
gender, race, whatever. Like if it's not right, it's not right. It needs to be talked about.
definitely.
So you've had a nice long career. If you could go back to the beginning, what would you tell yourself? What would you tell yourself? Hey, this will be some good advice as you move forward.
I think that was the most difficult question to think about when you asked me these questions. I think I would tell myself to make sure that I'm looking at all of my opportunities. So when I was in the Office of Air Quality, I really focused heavily on air quality only. And you have to at that point, you're required to know a lot of different regulations. And so I was very, very focused on learning air regs. I think what I would have told myself is make sure that you're learning about land issues, water issues, multimedia, looking more holistically at some of the larger picture issues and learning more about how to apply regulations in those areas as well. That would have made me more well-rounded for my knowledge and experience. Um, Although I am learning a lot in this role about a lot of areas because
Yeah.
we do handle multimedia questions. So I've learned a lot since I joined this group in 2016, and definitely in all areas that we handle the land questions, the disposal questions, the water questions. And I still hold my expertise in air.
There you go.
So,
No, I think that's really good advice because I feel like a lot of us in the industry kind of get siloed into our specialties. But you're right. If you can kind of open that pool up and look at things at a more holistic level, kind of it doesn't limit you. You can kind of do whatever you want to do. And I'm really glad you're in that role that you are now. I just like, again, I love CTAP and what you guys are doing.
thank you
So, all
so
right,
much.
kind of. All right, we got the heavy questions out of the way. I want to ask you some fun questions. What does Jennifer
Sure.
Collins like to do? What are your hobbies?
Well, I'm a singer. I like to sing.
Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
perform with the Indianapolis Women's Chorus, and so does Janet McCabe. So I'll just put that out there.
Nice.
So actually, right now we are not able to sing together as a group because that is considered one of the most dangerous activities, I guess,
Oh,
because of
yeah,
all of the respiratory droplets
yeah.
that might become airborne. Um, so we are meeting via Zoom and we do rehearse, and we will be putting together some videos of individuals singing and then merge those voices together as
Oh,
a
that's cool.
whole.
Yeah.
So for the holiday season, we're doing that. I also like to make jewelry and read.
Nice. Oh, okay. So I'm guessing this might be something on the outdoorsy, but I'm not sure. What's your favorite trip you've ever taken?
So my favorite trip was to Spain. I was
Oh,
in
nice.
college and I traveled to Spain to study. Had a minor in Spanish, so I studied at the University of Salamanca for 6 weeks, and then a group of us from IU took off in a car driving around Spain, went to Barcelona, and then all the way around the coast down to the Costa del Sol, and drove to Sevilla. And during this year, it was the Olympics in Barcelona and the uh, World's Fair in Sevilla. And then we returned to Madrid, and then I took a 11-hour train ride from Madrid back up to Santander, which that is my most favorite spot in the world, I think. It's beautiful, rocky beaches, and it's just fantastic. So
That sounds
highly recommend.
wonderful, especially right now when we can't actually do that. So yes, that sounds like
Right.
sounds really good. So all right, I know about the singing. Anything, any causes you're passionate about, like outside of work?
Definitely. worked with the Indiana Women's Prison for 10 years before I adopted the two young children. So it kind of took me away from that. But I'm really I'm passionate about encouraging women who have been incarcerated to be re-entered into society, and to know that what they did, if they did something in their past, that doesn't carry forward to who they are today. And so I was personally working with women. We had a group that we did book studies and just a lot of information for them about leadership and knowing their own personal power. And so I really enjoy that work and hope to someday return to that. I do have a lot of the women who were released from prison. We've stayed in touch, and they are out doing their own good work.
That's a wonderful cause, and exactly what empowering women in EHS series is all about. So it's great. Was there a specific? Did you guys have an organization, or is this something you kind of set up on your own?
I actually started it through my church that
Okay.
I had been studying to become a licensed teacher in my church, and I went off on my own and started a class that was called Real Spirit. And for 10 years, like I said, we studied books that were about empowerment and self-realization.
Beautiful. Okay. Last question. At Encamp, a lot of us here like to camp. So are you a camper or a glamper if you do go camping?
I am absolutely 100% a camper.
Oh, good for you.
Yes. And my family and I, just for fall break, because typically we might go to a resort or something. We did not. We camped at Lincoln State Park down south.
Oh,
In
good
Santa
for
Claus.
you. I am.
It was cold.
Yes.
It was definitely cold. It was like 33 on one of their coldest nights. But we are campers. Yes.
It's one thing I need to get better at. I'm just a glamper. But look, if I can do it, I need to work on it.
Yeah.
So, Jennifer, thank you for joining us and giving some great candid answers. Kudos to you for all you are doing and what you continue to do. Kind of setting the standard for women and just really changing our industry. And for our viewers out there, how could they get a hold of you if they want to, ask you some questions or anything?
Sure. They can reach me at my work email. It's jcollins,
Oh, there we go.
number
Okay.
1, at idem.in.gov.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Well, it's been great. Loved having you. I always enjoy talking to you. And for our viewers, we will see you soon. What's good for business is good for the environment.